everyone, it's Tracy, and I am here with my September deck roundup, where I talk about the decks I used in the month of September, which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like so much. So let's just jump in and get started. We'll start with the Tarot de Paris, or de Paris, or however you want to pronounce it. This deck is out of print. It comes with a hardback book, and it comes with this lovely scarf. I call it a scarf more than a reading cloth. It's 100% silk, and it does have the name on there. But it is, I believe it's one of the windows at Notre Dame. Let's look at the cards first. This is the back of the cards, and that's the same thing that's on the scarf. And then we'll talk a little bit about the book. These are all landmarks from Paris. Statues, sculptures, architectural elements from Paris. All of the majors are pretty much different. That is the Magician. Remember what the source was. It might be the World. And then the suits are elemental. So here we have the 5 of Fire, the 5 of Water. It is collage, but it's not much collage. It focuses on a main image of a single statue or piece of art. Statue. Yeah, there's no painted art. They're all statues. Is Harmony, which is the Lovers. Equilibrium would be Justice. The Sphinx is the Wheel of Fortune, which I rather like. The Sun. Matter is the Earth suit, the Pentacles. We have Fire, we have Water, and we have Air. The Questions, that's the Hanged Man. It's a really interesting deck. I've had it for quite a while, and it's one of those decks that in the many times I have gotten rid of decks out of my collection, it's always been in the to-go pile, and then I pull it back out again. So there's something about this deck that is just important to me, so that I can't quite let it go. And it does actually, it doesn't look like it follows the Rider-Waite very well, but it really actually does follow the Rider-Waite quite closely. It's just a really, really interesting deck. So that's Strength. So you see, here's the 6 of Air. That's the 6 of Swords. It very much looks like the 6 of Swords. The King of Air is Napoleon. Order for the Emperor, which I really like. The Ace of Air. The Crossing. Death. Now see, I had to pause there because I had to actually count up my Roman numerals. But when I was using it, it's been a while. This was one of the first decks I used in late August, early September. So I'm not remembering it as well, but I do remember I enjoyed working with it. The Tarot de Paris began rather unexpectedly on a windy March morning in 1981 while I was walking on the Champs-Élysées on my first ever trip to France. And he talks about how he created the deck. Really interesting about this deck is it follows the Triumphal Way, which was built over early Roman roads. The Triumphal Way is the palpable pulse of Paris. Though it extends a mere 5 miles, it comprises 3 separate avenues. The most prominent is the Avenue des Champs-Élysées, often translated as the Elysian Fields or Fields of Heaven. History has bestowed it with such honorary titles as the Royal Axis and Triumphal Way. And then he shows you, and from, if I remember correctly, all of the statues and things all came from this 5-mile stretch that go from the Tuileries up past the Arc de Triomphe and here. Then he moves into something that reminds me very much of a Dan Brown novel. He moves into what he calls the 22 cipher, an ancient code of wisdom with a triumphal way. It talks about the geometric importance of this triumphal way and how everything is related to it, each other. All the items are related to each other. It's really fascinating. And if you've got this deck and you haven't read this bit, I do recommend that you read it, and we go into the cards. So the source is the Fool. That's why I didn't have a number on it. The tarot begins and ends here. The source is the ethereal resource of every card in the tarot and the origin of all numbers. As the 0, it neither adds or subtracts from any other number. And then it has an exalted and a diminished meaning, and then correspondences. And there's a little key phrase for each card. Temperance is alchemy in this deck, which I kind of like. And there's a good bit more for the majors than for the minors. And then you have matter for coins, water for cups, fire for wands, and air for swords. Talks about the court cards, and then there we are with the numbers again. So really interesting deck. I enjoyed working with it, and it is going to stay in my collection. Oh, a word about the cardstock. It is pretty bad. It is very cardboardy, very thin cardboardy, not as bad as the Tarot of Transformation, but close. And it has these little, you can see the little places where apparently it was one of those, the way the cards were cut were with these little punch thingies that you have to use to separate it, because those little punch thingies are along the sides where they remained attached even when the cards were cut. So not great quality, but still keeping it. I used my Spirit Within Tarot by Stephen Bright in September. And I'm not going to show much of this deck because I did just do a full comparison between this deck and I believe it was the Healing Light Tarot. I really like this deck. I think it is easy to read, it's clear, it's modern, and I like modern decks. I don't want all my decks to be modern, but I like some modern decks in my collection. And I think it's a very usable deck, even though it's that glossy Schiffer cardstock. It's not wonderful cardstock, but it's not the worst. And I tried some fanning powder on it to see if that would help at all, and it really didn't. So I don't know, I might try some baby powder next. But as I use it, it does, you know, if you use these sticky decks, they get less sticky. So I just need to use it. Very lovely deck. Love that Sun card. Very, very much enjoyed using it. I used Tarot of the Sweet Twilight a little bit in September and a little bit the 1st of October. This is a really interesting deck. It is not Rider-Waite. It's its own sort of thing. And the only way I can really read this deck is to basically not throw my tarot knowledge out the window, but I rely on the image and a little bit of numerology. So I don't pull in my Rider-Waite meanings, but I do pull in a little of my numerology and then look at the picture. This is one of those decks where I have to sit and take a minute and describe the picture on the card to get a meaning out of it. Because here we have the Ten of Pentacles. We have a woman. She looks a bit worse for wear, I would say. She has some candles, and she's got some branches that have little pentacles on them, and they look like, I don't know, they were the last of the season's pentacles, because you know the stems are all kind of raggedy and there's no other growth on them. And there's this weird little bunny rabbit looking at her down the stairs. So I definitely don't get the ancestral money and family vibe that you would normally get from the Ten of Pentacles with that card. I get more the numerological, it's over, you know, your good fortune has ended type of thing. So yeah, I definitely have to look at the images on these cards. But I didn't get, you know, I've said before that it's really about how they make me feel. And this deck just didn't excite me all that much when I worked with it this month. I love this though, that she's stabbing herself in the heart. And I've always loved this strength card with this Yoda guy on it. I mean, you can't use Yoda for copyright reasons, but he's Yoda. I mean, let's face it, he's Yoda. So I'm not quite sure where I'm going to end up with this deck. I used it for less than a week because when I was pulling cards from it, it didn't excite me to use it. I wasn't thinking, oh great, yay, I get to pull cards from Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. I was thinking, when can I move on to another deck? But at the same time, I don't think I'm quite ready to get rid of it. I mean, it's a mass-produced deck. It's easily available. It's not like it's something that is in high demand, so there's no real need for me to get rid of it. I know that sounds weird, but yes, if I have a deck that I just don't connect with and I know somebody else is going to want it, I'm definitely much more willing to give it away than something, or to trade it or to sell it, than something like this, which is easily available for $20. And so yeah, I'll likely hang on to this one for a little while. I did edge it. I worked with my Delos Tarot 2nd edition this month because I discovered that the 2nd edition was reprinted. I had the 1st edition, I still do have the 1st edition of the Delos Tarot. And I purchased the 2nd edition when it first came out, and then it went out of print. And like I was saying, I already had the 1st edition. I didn't really need to have 2 editions. Someone else really wanted it, so I traded it away. And then when I discovered on Etsy that for $27 I could get another copy of the 2nd edition, I jumped all over that. So this is number 2524 out of 3,000. It is the most adorable Little Rider-Waite clone. The Little White Book is almost entirely in Korean, so I took it out of the box. But it is just adorable. The 1st edition's adorable, the 2nd edition's adorable. I think I prefer the 1st edition slightly because of the cardstock, but it's a great deck. It really is. And I have another deck coming tomorrow that is a little bit like this deck, because I like a cute deck. I really do. I like a cute deck. I don't think it makes it fluffy or makes the readings inconsequential. It just appeals to my heart. A cute deck does. And if it touches my heart, if the images on the deck touch my heart, I am much more likely to listen to what the cards are actually saying to me. So I have got no problem with cute decks, as you will see in my next deck. Way of the Panda Terra by Kimberly Zahn, Fable's Den. I love this deck. I think it's adorable, and she has put out a couple of videos recently on her YouTube channel where she's addressing the issue of what's wrong with cute decks. Why do people seem to see cute decks and fluffy decks as being less important or less powerful than darker or more serious decks? And I'm right there in the same space with her. I would much rather get my message from a panda than from some creepy looking scary dude. Right? Artist, this is the author card, Kimberly Zahn. She wrote the book and, you know, the concept. And on the other side we have the artist, who is actually selling the originals on her Etsy shop. And with this Kickstarter version, we got 4 extra cards: the Stargazing Panda, the Caffeinated Panda, Dream Space, and the Witchy Panda. I don't shuffle those into the deck. I may at some point, but right now I haven't. The cardstock is an absolute dream. It is not that rubbery cardstock, but it's not glossy either. It is pretty much perfect. It slides some, but not too much. That's the backs. It is just the cutest tarot deck. And it doesn't shy away from the difficult things. It's not nice washed. It's just cute. I mean, you see this 10 of Swords. Yeah, he's got the 10 swords in his back, but he's clearly a stuffed panda, because here's his stuffing coming out. So it's not quite as scary looking, but it is still just as final as it would be in any other 10 of Swords where the guy was bleeding to death on the snow. I love this, his little paper boat. And a red panda going with him on his adventure. Lisa at Supportive Tarot did a full walkthrough of this, and if you'd like to see this deck, I would highly suggest that you go look at her walkthrough. The voice of this deck is Kim's voice, and it's kind of like the Spirit Within Tarot, where the voice of that deck is Stephen Bright's voice, and I can hear it. I can hear Kim in this deck. Let's have an example. Okay, here we have the 2 of Swords. He's thinking. Clearly he's thinking. Reminds me a little bit of Winnie the Pooh. He's got a little feather on his head. He's got a book. He's got a cup of tea and 2 swords over his head. All these pandas have names. Reminds me a little bit of Paulina Cassidy, how she named everything in the Joie de Vivre Tarot. All the characters have names. So many considerations. I don't know what I will choose. I do know I need more tea, however. Yes, tea. English breakfast with soy coffee cream and a paw of sugar. Not a full paw, sheesh, I'm not a savage. As you can probably tell, Hugo likes to mull things over, a lot. He's always on the verge of a breakthrough, testing multiple theories and engaging in thought experiments to solve whatever puzzle or conundrum he's stuck on. This doesn't bother him much, though. Unlike humans, pandas don't feel pressed to make a decision quickly, and the thought of not arriving at an immediate conclusion for a period of time doesn't really bother them. Hugo is especially so. Thinking, considering, exploring, or mulling things over helps him strengthen his critical thinking muscles. Most importantly, all these mental exercises keep him on his metaphysical toes. No, his metaphorical toes. Keep him on his metaphorical toes and help him know himself better. He is a processing machine, and he doesn't mind spending time to make sure the answer is correct, accurate, and true. Time to sharpen your critical thinking skills. There's no such thing as a mental stalemate. If you don't know what to think, then perhaps you're not doing it right. It's not really about what you think, it's about how you think. How can you process the information you have and understand the situation better? What are some of the perspectives that you have not yet considered? Don't be afraid or frustrated when you can't seem to find the answer right away. You will find the answer, and there are many different ways to approach the same problem. You're in control. You get to compare and analyze ideas to see if they're useful or not. As you examine your options and explore your thoughts about each one, you will come to know your priorities and your principles. Such is the quest for truth. Still at that stalemate? If you are, unfortunately, trapped in a stalemate, it's perhaps a sign that you have done all the thinking that you can. Time to get off your panda buttocks and spring into action. Do something, anything. Flip a coin if you absolutely can't decide. Or don't decide. Go for a walk to change the energy and generate some flow. Do some downward dogs and stretch out your back and your hamstrings. Browse the internet for some adorable panda memes. Or take a break and resume your mental anguish. The tug-of-war thoughts later when you feel refreshed and rejuvenated. That's just lovely, and that's just a sample. There are some in here where she's really irreverent, and I really appreciate that. Life is so difficult for so many of us. I need a dose of lighthearted advice from time to time, and I just love this deck. And the last tarot deck I have to show for September is the Bonefire Tarot. This is my second copy of the Bonefire Tarot. I had a copy. I didn't connect with it. I traded it away. And then I bought another copy because I kind of regretted it. But after working with it again for a second time, the book is fabulous. I'm going to keep it just for the book because this is a really interesting book where she goes into a lot of her creative process in creating the images for the cards. I read the entry for the Nine of Swords, and it was one of the ones I believe she left for last because she was kind of fearing having to deal with it. And then it became one of her favorite cards when she actually dealt with it, and I love that, and I love what she's got to say about the Nine of Swords. So I'm definitely going to keep this one just for the book. The cards are not my favorite. I find the artwork doesn't appeal to me. The people in this deck look a little alien to me. They're a little off, and that just is kind of a thing that makes it not appealing to me. The real issue, well, I have a couple of issues with this deck. It's too busy. I used this one just this week. I've got my 4-card weekly spread set out on my desk to look at, and it's too much to look at. When I do my 4-card weekly reading and I leave it out all week and I have a chance to have a look at it, sit with it for 5 minutes or something like that, I need for it to not overwhelm me with all the images, all the imagery that's there. So this deck is just too busy for me. And secondly, this has got to be the worst cardstock that Schiffer has ever done. It's very sticky and it's very thick. And I don't like to touch it. And when I go to shuffle it, it's too stiff to shuffle. And when I shuffle it this way, it's too sticky. You see, that one fell out because it was sticking to another one. So yeah, this deck isn't for me, but at the same time, I'm not getting rid of it because I really do love the book. Now we'll move on to the Oracle decks that I used this month, and I've only got 4 that I used this month. Hit and miss. We'll start with Ethany's Awakened Soul Oracle. And while I love this deck, when I pulled it out to use it this month, it just kind of left me flat. I love the artwork. I think the artwork is absolutely beautiful. The messages are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. For where I was in my journey in September, the messages I was getting out of this deck were not what I needed. I needed something more advice-driven, and these are just lovely messages. So let's look at Perseverance. Well, first of all, the cards are fine. The images and the keywords jive, and I like that. But I don't get much just from looking at it beyond the keyword. It didn't draw me in to find deeper meaning. So in Perseverance, we have Symbol the Badger, keywords fortitude, stamina, endurance, staying the course. Our awakened soul could have given up many times in her life. She could have chosen to allow the loss of her leg to become her defining story. This would have kept her stuck in the past, resentful and unable to fulfill the highest potential in this life. Instead, she's back doing what she loves, running. It has been a long road, and she has taken the badger as a personal mascot as they hold the meaning and message of perseverance. Any time that she felt her recovery was too much, she envisioned herself opening on the open road running, a true joy in her life. And that continues for a little while. And then we have the awakened meaning. The Perseverance card has called to you today to remind you that you have more resourcefulness, ability, and potential than you may ever know. It's kindly asking that you stop limiting yourself because of what has happened in the past, your fears, what other people think of you, or what you can and cannot do. Dig deep, push through the limitations you have placed on yourself. And there's a little bit more of that. And that's perfectly wonderful message. But right now, it's just not working for me. And I can't really explain why. So this one is not going anywhere either. It's just going to go kind of in the back of my shelf for a while. And in a year or so, you never know, I might be in the right place for these messages to be the messages that I need to hear. So go figure. Next we have the Everyday Witch Oracle, which was a disappointment. And I do love the Everyday Witch Tarot. I know there are a number of people who really love the Everyday Witch Tarot, and I like it. I like it a lot. I think it has a lot to say. So my expectations were kind of high for the Everyday Witch Oracle, and it just kind of fell flat. Now, if you've seen any other people talking about this deck, you know that there are 4 suits, Earth, Air, Fire, and Water, and there are 10 cards in each suit, so you have 40 cards. They are not numbered, and in the book, they are in order by suit. So you have the 10 Earth cards, the 10 Air cards, the 10 Fire cards, and the 10 Water cards. Only problem is, some of the cards, this is clearly an Earth card. Some of the cards, it's not quite clear what suit they're with. And the image on the card and the keywords didn't give me enough. So what I did was I took those little washi stickers, not washi tape. Washi tape was too thick. But you can get these stickers on washi paper that are super thin. And I cut the edge off of a sheet of those washi stickers and then cut it into teeny tiny little pieces and then stuck it here and wrote like E6 will be the Earth suit and the 6th card, so I would know which one it was, because these cards are too glossy to actually write on with a pen. So I had to resort to finding another way. And you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but this end is a tad bit bigger than this end because of the culmination of all the little bits of washi sticker that I put on there. But not enough to actually interfere with it or interfere with the shuffling or anything like that. But at the same time, the messages and the system in this Oracle deck they didn't work for me. I love the images. So that's Earth 2, Hibernation and Regeneration, Fire 1, Sun and Stars. So let's have a look at that one. See if I can illustrate it. Okay. Fire is one of the easiest of the elements to tune into. Not just because you can simply light a candle, although there's that, but also because fire exists all around us all the time. After all, the sun is at its heart a big ball of fire. So are the stars, although they are so distant we can't feel their warmth. So don't worry if you don't have space for a bonfire or the time to sit and watch a candle burn. Simply turn your face to the sun, or look up at the stars and remember that the element of fire is in more places than you think. And then they have an action. Do something to connect with the element of fire. A divination. This card is a reminder to expand the way you connect to the elements, in this case fire in particular. Do you use the same symbols to represent it in every ritual you do? Maybe it's time to switch things up. And then a magic. Well, if I'm coming to this oracle for guidance and help with my everyday life, maybe, that isn't gonna do it. That isn't giving me what I need. So this deck, I don't see myself using this deck. I really don't. And fortunately, the little pieces of washi tape will peel right off. That was another reason that I used this little washi sticker stuff, because I knew it would peel right off. But yeah, this deck's just not for me. I pulled out the Black Moon Astrology cards this month. This is a deck I like. I like this deck a lot. And I think this is the best deck out there to help learn astrology. Now, I don't have them all, but that's the reason that I picked this deck, is to help me learn more about astrology. And it really does that, while at the same time giving me really great messages. I'm not real big on the borders. I've thought about taking them off, but I'm not much on chopping up my decks anymore. It always makes them harder to shuffle. This deck, it's a Blue Angel deck. It has all the planets, all the zodiac signs, all the houses, fire, earth, air, and water, north node, south node, lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, part of fortune, grand trine, grand cross, yod, Jupiter return, Saturn return, Mercury retrograde, and void, of course, of the moon. So it's got so much in there. And each of the messages is just, it's really good. So here we have like 4, Venus means love. It gives you a very brief one, a quote, a full description of the card, all about the planet, all about what the planet means. And then if you just want to read a paragraph about it instead, there's a paragraph in brief. There is a tarot card correspondence, and there are key ideas. And they do that, she does that for every, or she does that for every card. Like here's the Sagittarius, I see the dates, here's your quote, here's all about Sagittarius and what Sagittariuses are all about, the card in brief, key ideas. So you can use it to learn, or you can use it to, say if I drew the Sagittarius card today, pull the energy of Sagittarius into my life. Let's have a look at some of the images on the cards, because I know you don't want to look at the book. The images are fine. They aren't wonderful. They're nothing to write home about, but they also convey, you know, this is Aries. You know, we have the symbol, the ram, some other imagery that says Aries. Even the color says Aries. Pluto, here we have second house. The 4th house is roots. Yeah, the 2nd house is owning. There's Sagittarius. Solar eclipse, revolution. Yod, destiny. There's the Kabbalistic tree of life. 8th house, ending and beginnings. 3rd house, messages. Lunar eclipse, change. Gemini, I think. Aquarius, I know. Part of fortune, increase. Void, of course, moon, missing. 7th house, partners. So you can see this is, the images really don't give me anything to go on. They don't give me any of the information, but the book is really good. And yeah, I really like this deck, and I'm going to continue to use this deck to help me learn a little bit more about astrology. I have no plans to become a true astrologer, but I want to know a little bit about astrology, and this deck will help me with that. And lastly, we have the Heal Yourself reading cards. This is a really interesting deck. I don't particularly like the art because it's too much of that romance novel cover art, and that's not my cup of tea. You know, these all look like they could be the cover of a romance novel with, you know, pretty busty women primarily. And I found the messages for me were kind of hit and miss. This is a great deck to use if you have some serious past trauma that you need to heal. And some of the cards were very helpful, but some of them weren't. Let's see if I can. All right, here's an example. The home card. How do you keep recreating home? In the context of this teaching, let's use the word home to describe your unconscious ability to attract intimate partners with the positive and negative qualities your parents instilled in you. This card honors the wounded child in you that keeps recreating home, hoping to get your childhood development codependency needs met. You might even provoke the other to act or look like your original parent. In a world where so many of our natural emotions were not encouraged and worse yet suppressed, you are now encouraged to feel the feelings trapped inside you and that consistently sabotage your life. Or how about, let's try soulmate. Your soulmate is not far from you. To connect with them, you need to open your heart. Call them in and have patience. If you're not ready to accept your soulmate, keep working on self-love. Well, I don't know that I really believe in soulmates. And what if you're already in a relationship? So, yeah, I think this is really a deck. If you've got some past wounds, and it's really more of a relationship deck, it really is. It's about finding love, loving yourself, finding love, figuring out how to heal yourself so that you can find love. And that's just not where I am right now. Plus, again, the artwork just really turns me off. But some of them were really good. I did some of they have just a description and some action. And some of it's a little fortune tellery. Where was the help from above? You are loved beyond your wildest dreams. Divine beings are working on your behalf to create the perfect circumstances for you to heal and open your heart. That's a little bit, that's not, the actions are helpful to me because that's something that I can do to help me heal. I just can't explain it. I just can't explain it. It's just something a little bit slightly off to me about this deck. So I don't know that this deck is going to stay, and I didn't do a very good job explaining why this deck didn't work for me. But there it is. That's what you're going to get this month. And then the last thing I want to show you is a little something that I've actually been working on for myself. I've been getting Witch's Moon boxes and Witch's Root boxes for 10 months now, since January, I believe. And I have accumulated a nice little apothecary of supplies that I can turn to when I want to do a little bit of witchy working. Problem is, I never knew what I had. And I would read a spell and say, do I have that? Is there something I can substitute for that? So I have just very simply created cards that are what I have in my cabinet of witchery, as the Witch's Moon calls it. So the oils, the herbs, and the stones. Now I'm not through with this yet because I've got a whole lot more stones than that, and I haven't written all my stone cards out. But I decided to start not getting too ambitious with this and just, making these are actually, you can get these from Amazon. They're playing cards. They're blank playing cards that I have written like here's bergamot oil. It's good for money and clarity. Some of these are blends that I actually got, like the bliss oil is for relaxing, opening, and comforting, and it includes cedarwood, bergamot, lang lang, lavender, St. John's wort, passion flower, ginger, and echinacea. So these are all the different oils that I have that I could use to anoint a candle or to put on myself, something like that if I were doing some very specific working. And then I got these little plastic playing card holders to put them in. Now, if this works well for me, then I might get a little bit more creative and I can use these same cards and put, you know, pictures of, I have alfalfa, allspice, bay leaf. I can put a picture of it on there, and then on the other side I can write the properties, or if I want to get really fancy, I can type them up in a Word document and use a really fun font and stick them on the back. But if I got that ambitious right at first, I would not do anything. I'd do 2 cards and then I'd quit. So the first thing I wanted to do is see if I would use the cards if I had just had them written down that, okay, I've got some California poppy. It's for calm, meditation, luck, and money. I could look through, say, if a spell needed something for money and I didn't have that particular herb, I could say, oh, well, let me substitute some of this California poppy. So that's one of the things I have been working on in September. And that is it for me. Thank you so very much for watching and have a fabulous day.